Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a quiet afternoon in the English countryside. The sky is pale and wide. The air is cool. A young man sits alone beneath an apple tree. There is no applause. No crowd. No sign that history is about to change. There is only silence, and a single falling apple. Most people would see nothing special in that moment. An apple falls. It touches the ground. The world continues as it always has. But this young man does not look away. He asks a question. Why down? Why always down? That quiet question would open a door that had been closed since the beginning of time. Today, we begin the extraordinary life of Isaac Newton, a man who changed the way humanity understands the universe. And as you listen, remember this: great discoveries often begin in very small, very quiet moments. Welcome, my friend. I am glad you are here. Take a slow breath. Make yourself comfortable. This is a place where we learn English through true and powerful stories. Stories of struggle. Stories of patience. Stories that remind us that progress is often invisible at first. Now let us travel back in time. The year was 1642. England was not peaceful. The country was in the middle of a civil war. People were divided. The future was uncertain. And in a small village called Woolsthorpe, a baby boy was born too early. His name was Isaac Newton. He was so small and weak that many believed he would not survive. His mother later said he could fit inside a large cup. Imagine that. The child who would later measure the movement of planets began his life smaller than anyone expected. His father had died before he was born. His mother, Hannah, was left alone with a fragile baby and a farm to manage. Life was not easy. When Isaac was only 3 years old, something happened that would shape his heart forever. His mother remarried and moved away, leaving Isaac in the care of his grandmother. He was just a child. He watched his mother leave. He stayed behind. Loneliness entered his life early. Some children grow louder when they feel alone. Isaac grew quieter. He did not enjoy rough games. He did not run with large groups of boys. Instead, he preferred to sit alone and observe the world around him. He built small mechanical models with his hands. Tiny windmills. Water clocks. Paper lanterns. While other children played, Isaac watched. He noticed how shadows changed during the day. He studied how water flowed. He paid attention to the smallest details. At school, he was not famous. He was not immediately recognized as a genius. For a time, he was an average student. Quiet. Reserved. Easy to overlook. But inside his mind, something was forming. Curiosity. A slow and steady curiosity. There is something important to understand here. Isaac Newton was not born a legend. He was born a quiet, thoughtful child who asked questions and did not stop asking them. As he grew older, his mother wanted him to become a farmer. It was a practical decision. The family owned land. Farming was stable. Safe. But Isaac did not belong in the fields. When he tried to manage the farm, he forgot tasks. He became distracted. Instead of watching the animals, he would sit under a tree reading a book. Instead of selling crops, he would solve mathematics problems in his notebook. His mind was somewhere else. One of his teachers noticed this. The teacher saw that Isaac's strength was not in physical labor, but in thinking. He encouraged Isaac's family to send him to university. And so, in 1661, Isaac Newton entered Cambridge University. Cambridge was one of the greatest centers of learning in Europe. But when Isaac arrived, the world of science was still full of mystery. People knew that planets moved. They knew that objects fell. But they did not fully understand why. At Cambridge, Isaac studied mathematics, astronomy, and natural philosophy, what we now call science. He read the works of Galileo, who had studied motion. He read the ideas of René Descartes. He filled pages with numbers and symbols. He worked quietly in small rooms lit by candlelight. For the first time, he felt that he was exactly where he needed to be. But just as his education began to grow deeper, something unexpected happened. In 1665, a terrible disease called the Great Plague spread through England. Thousands of people died. Fear filled the cities. Cambridge University closed its doors. Students were sent home. For many, this was a disaster. Their education stopped. For Isaac Newton, it was the beginning of something extraordinary. He returned to Woolsthorpe. Back to the quiet countryside. Back to the same fields and trees he had known as a child. There were no professors. No classrooms. No formal lectures. Only silence. Only space. Only time. And sometimes, when life removes noise from around us, it gives us the gift of deeper thought. Isaac spent nearly 2 years alone during the plague. 2 years of isolation. 2 years of thinking. 2 years of asking questions without interruption. While the world outside was afraid and uncertain, inside his mind, ideas were beginning to connect. He studied light using a simple glass prism. When white light passed through the prism, it separated into colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. This surprised many people. Until then, most believed that white light was pure and simple. Isaac showed that it was made of many colors together. But he did not stop there. He began to think about motion. Why do objects move the way they do? Why does a thrown stone follow a curved path? Why does the moon not fall to earth? And then, one quiet afternoon, sitting beneath an apple tree, he saw something that humans had seen for thousands of years. An apple fell. But this time, someone truly looked. The apple did not fall differently that day. It did not glow. It did not make a sound louder than usual. It simply dropped from the branch and moved toward the ground, just as apples always had. But Isaac Newton did something uncommon. He paused. He did not accept the moment as ordinary. He did not say, "That is just how nature works." Instead, he asked a question so simple that it almost sounds childish. Why does the apple always fall down? Why not sideways? Why not upward? What is pulling it? For centuries, people had seen objects fall. They had lived with gravity every second of their lives. But they had never fully explained it. They described it. They accepted it. They even feared it. But they did not understand it. Newton believed there must be a force, an invisible power, pulling the apple toward the earth. And then his mind went further. If the earth pulls the apple, could it also be pulling the moon? Look up at the night sky. The moon does not fly away into darkness. It circles the earth again and again, steady and faithful. Why? Newton imagined something bold. Perhaps the same force that pulls the apple downward also reaches far into space. Perhaps it stretches across enormous distances. Perhaps it is not just Earth pulling objects, but every object in the universe pulling on every other object. This idea was revolutionary. It meant that the universe was connected by a single law. A law that applied to falling apples and distant planets. A law that did not change depending on who you were or where you lived. One rule for all. Newton called this force gravity. Today, the word feels familiar. Almost simple. But at that time, it was a door opening into a completely new understanding of reality. He began writing equations to describe this force. He calculated how mass and distance affect attraction. He showed that the strength of gravity increases when objects are heavier and decreases when they are farther apart. It was mathematics, yes. But it was also poetry in numbers. For the first time, someone had described the invisible threads holding the universe together. But gravity was only part of his genius. Newton also developed 3 laws of motion, rules that explain how objects move. The first law is simple: an object at rest stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion unless a force changes it. Imagine a book lying on a table. It will not move by itself. It remains still until someone pushes it. Now imagine a ball rolling across the ground. It will continue rolling until friction or another force slows it down. This seems obvious now. But before Newton, motion was not fully understood. People believed that objects needed constant force to keep moving. Newton proved otherwise. His second law connected force, mass, and acceleration. In simple words, the heavier an object is, the more force you need to move it. Push a small chair, and it slides easily. Push a car, and you feel resistance. The third law may be the most famous: for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. When you jump, your feet push against the ground. The ground pushes back, lifting you into the air. These laws explain nearly everything that moves, from falling stones to orbiting planets. It is difficult for us today to imagine how shocking this was. Before Newton, the universe felt unpredictable. After Newton, it felt ordered. Predictable. Mathematical. Understandable. His ideas were eventually published in 1687 in a book called Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, often shortened to Principia. It was not an easy book to read. It was written in Latin. It was filled with complex equations. But inside those pages was a map of motion itself. Scientists across Europe were amazed. Some called it the greatest work ever written in science. The quiet boy from Woolsthorpe had described the mechanics of the heavens. But here is something important. Newton did not rush to publish his discoveries. He was careful. Extremely careful. He checked and rechecked his calculations. He doubted himself. He feared criticism. He understood that big ideas attract big opposition. And opposition came. Another mathematician, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, had also developed a powerful mathematical system known today as calculus. Calculus allows us to measure change, how things move and grow over time. Both men believed they had discovered it first. A bitter argument followed. Supporters from both sides defended their chosen genius. Accusations were made. Letters were written. Pride was wounded. Newton, who had once been the lonely child left behind, did not enjoy being challenged. He became defensive. Suspicious. Even the greatest minds are still human. It is easy to admire success. It is harder to understand the pressure that comes with it. As his fame grew, Newton became president of the Royal Society. He was later appointed Master of the Royal Mint, where he worked to improve England's currency and fight counterfeiters. He was knighted by Queen Anne in 1705. From that day forward, he was known as Sir Isaac Newton. Honor had found him. Recognition had found him. But inside, he was still the same man who once sat quietly under a tree asking why. And yet, even with all his achievements, there were parts of his life that many people do not expect. He spent years studying alchemy, searching for hidden transformations in matter. He wrote deeply about religion and theology. He believed the universe was designed with purpose and intelligence. Science and faith were not enemies in his mind. They were different ways of seeking truth. Newton once wrote a humble sentence that still echoes today: "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." He understood that his brilliance was built upon the work of others. Greatness, he believed, is never completely alone. And as the years passed, his body grew weaker, but his legacy grew stronger. The laws he wrote continued guiding scientists. Engineers used his principles to build bridges and machines. Astronomers used his equations to predict planetary motion. Centuries later, when rockets carried humans into space, they still relied on Newton's laws of motion and gravity. The apple had fallen. But its echo had reached the stars. As the years moved forward, Isaac Newton became something rare, not just a scientist, but a symbol. His work had brought order to chaos. Where others saw mystery, he saw structure. Where others saw isolated events, he saw universal laws. But symbols are often simpler than the real person behind them. Newton was brilliant, yes. But he was also complicated. He did not laugh easily. He trusted few people. He could hold anger for a long time. When he felt betrayed or criticized, he did not forget. The disagreement with Leibniz over calculus left a deep mark on him. Instead of resolving the matter peacefully, the conflict grew. Supporters took sides. Accusations of copying were whispered and published. Newton used his influence as president of the Royal Society to defend himself. Some historians believe he allowed pride to guide him in those moments. It reminds us of something important. Great intelligence does not automatically create great peace. Even a man who understood the movement of planets struggled to manage the movements of his own emotions. And yet, despite his flaws, his dedication to knowledge never faded. He worked long hours. Sometimes he forgot to eat. Sometimes he became so focused on a problem that he lost all sense of time. He once placed an egg in boiling water to cook, but instead of using a clock to measure time, he held his watch in the water and kept the egg in his hand. His mind was always somewhere deeper. Newton never married. He had no children. His life was devoted almost entirely to study and service. Some say he chose solitude. Others believe solitude chose him long ago, when his mother left him as a small child. But perhaps that early loneliness gave him something unexpected. Silence. And in silence, he learned to think. When he moved permanently to London, he entered a more public life. As Master of the Royal Mint, he took his responsibilities seriously. England's coins were being copied illegally. Counterfeit money weakened the economy. Newton personally investigated criminals. He gathered evidence. He questioned suspects. The same careful attention he once gave to falling apples, he now gave to false coins. He believed that order mattered, in the sky and on earth. In his later years, his health slowly declined. But his reputation only grew stronger. Young scientists visited him with respect. His books were studied across Europe. His ideas were taught in universities. He had become part of the foundation of modern science. When he died in 1727 at the age of 84, England honored him in a way rarely given to scientists. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, among kings and national heroes. On his monument were words praising his genius. People came to pay their respects. But perhaps the most powerful tribute to Newton was not written in stone. It was written in motion. Every time a bridge stands strong against gravity, Newton's laws are present. Every time a spacecraft calculates its path through space, Newton's equations are guiding it. Every time a student learns why objects fall, Newton's question echoes quietly, why down? And yet, as science continued to grow, new discoveries showed that Newton's laws were not the final answer to everything. Centuries later, Albert Einstein would expand and refine the understanding of gravity with his theory of relativity. Does this mean Newton was wrong? No. It means knowledge is a journey. Newton gave the world a powerful foundation. Others built upon it. Just as he once stood on the shoulders of giants, future scientists stood on his. There is humility in that. And there is hope. Because it reminds us that progress does not require perfection. It requires contribution. Newton once compared himself to a child playing on the seashore, finding smoother stones and prettier shells, while the vast ocean of truth lay undiscovered before him. Think about that image. A man who explained the movement of planets still believed there was more to learn. That is true wisdom. The story of Isaac Newton is not only about gravity. It is about attention. It is about patience. It is about the courage to question ordinary things. He did not invent the apple. He did not create motion. He did not design the moon. He simply looked longer than others did. He stayed with the question. In a world that moves quickly, Newton moved slowly. In a world that accepted simple answers, Newton searched for deeper ones. And now, my friend, I want to gently bring this story closer to you. Perhaps you are learning English right now and sometimes it feels difficult. Perhaps you read a sentence and do not understand it immediately. Perhaps you listen and miss a few words. It would be easy to say, it is too hard, and stop. But think of Newton during the plague years. Alone. No teachers. No applause. No guarantee that his ideas would matter. He kept studying. He kept asking. He kept thinking. Progress often looks invisible in the beginning. An apple falls quietly. No one notices. But the question that follows can change the world. Every new word you learn is like that apple. Small. Ordinary. Easy to ignore. But if you pause, if you ask, if you practice, something powerful begins to grow. Understanding does not arrive all at once. It builds. Slowly. Steadily. Just as Newton built his ideas line by line, page by page, year by year. You are building something too. In the final years of his life, Isaac Newton walked more slowly, but his mind never truly rested. The world around him had changed. New scientists were rising. New questions were forming. But the laws he had written continued to guide them like steady stars in the night sky. He had begun as a fragile child whom few believed would survive. He had grown into a quiet boy who preferred shadows and silence. He had once been a student sent home by a deadly plague, uncertain of what the future would bring. And yet, from those uncertain years came ideas that reshaped human history. There is something deeply powerful about that. Newton did not discover gravity because he was the loudest voice in the room. He did not change science because he demanded attention. He changed the world because he paid attention. He noticed what others ignored. He questioned what others accepted. He stayed with problems longer than others were willing to stay. When he died in 1727, people mourned the loss of a great mind. But what truly remained was not only his memory. It was his method. Observe carefully. Think deeply. Question gently. Prove patiently. These simple actions built a bridge between Earth and the stars. Today, airplanes cross the sky because of principles he described. Satellites circle the planet because of equations he calculated. Even the simple act of walking, jumping, or throwing a ball follows the laws he carefully wrote more than 300 years ago. The falling apple was never just about fruit and gravity. It was about curiosity. It was about the quiet courage to ask, why, when no one else does. And now, as our story comes softly to its end, I want you to remember something important. You do not need to discover a new planet to live an extraordinary life. You do not need to write a book filled with equations to make progress. You only need to keep asking. Keep learning. Keep paying attention. Perhaps today you learned a new English word. Perhaps you understood a sentence more clearly than before. That may seem small. But small understanding, repeated every day, becomes powerful knowledge over time. Newton once stood beneath a tree and noticed what everyone else had seen but never questioned. You are standing in your own moment right now. Your own quiet place. Your own opportunity to grow. The universe still follows its laws. Apples still fall. The moon still circles the earth. And somewhere, someone is still asking why. Let that someone be you. Thank you for spending this time with the extraordinary life of Isaac Newton and the discovery of gravity. If this story helped you learn something new, or if one moment stayed with you, take a moment to reflect on it. Your journey of learning is already in motion. And like all motion, it continues, step by step, question by question, forward.